story on page 13 of the Daily Telegraph, in which it says criminals owe £4.4 billion in unpaid fines and court fees, and it suggests here that it's equivalent to the entire budget originally set aside to build 20,000 prison places. So now we know why they can't build any prisons, because nobody's bothering to pay any fines that they get imposed upon them.
Yeah, and victims, watchdogs and charities, you know, they're up in arms about this because they're facing budget cuts of around 4% under new measures, you know, and, you know, at a time when they're having to go through all of that, you know, these victims will be dismayed to see that, you know, the criminals aren't paying any of these sorts of costs.
Right.
And it's nearly 3 times more money owed now than in 2010.
Right. So I guess they're just not paying it. Apparently, many of these fees are monies that are owed under the victim surcharge, which is a new thing, isn't it, where basically the victim supposedly gets some form of compensation. So presumably this means that either the victims are not getting the compensation or the government's paying the victims and the criminals are not repaying it.
Well, we don't know exactly why, you know, where the blockage is in all of this, but, you know, there must be ways to seize someone's assets because, you know, surely the victims have to take priority here.
You would think, but I guess the problem is a lot of the people who are being fined don't have any assets. So there's nothing you can really take.
What do you do?
Yeah, it's not a good sign. Let's talk about another NHS story. 300,000 patients waiting over 6 weeks for tests. These are the kind of hidden waiting lists. This is on page 23 of the Daily Mail. You know, when you kind of you look through what's wrong with the NHS and you talk about, you know, trying to reduce the backlog of people waiting for operations and all of this. These are people who are simply waiting for tests to see whether they need an operation.
This is such a sobering and serious story, actually. I think it's one of the most serious stories of the week here, because patients, you know, they're waiting 6 weeks. That figure has soared 23-fold in less than a decade. And these are the sorts of tests that tell you whether you've got cancer and other major sort of diseases. And those delays mean that doctors, you know, maybe can't prescribe the necessary drugs or perform surgery on all of this. And it's, you know, and you know, CT and MRI scans are 1.6 million, and it comes at the same time. This is quite astonishing. If you want to get a test for autism, you have to wait till when? 2043.
What? 2043?
2043.
Crikey.
Unbelievable.
That is ridiculous. I was talking to somebody the other day about their daughter who needed a test for something or other, and it was quite sort of acute in the sense that she was in quite a lot of pain and they wanted to see whether or not there was a problem with kidneys or something like that. And the closest and most available test they could give, this was last month, was in March. So you're supposed to basically go through all the way through Christmas, all the way through the first 3 months of the year, in quite a lot of pain, because they can't get you a test to find out what's wrong. I mean, it's not a health service at all, is it, really?
Well, and again, another promise from Keir Starmer is that 92% of patients will wait no longer than 18 weeks for hospital treatment. So that's going to be another one of these legacy things.
But that's another great target, which is not actually going to have to be hit.
I have to say, I've never had any problems, actually, or, you know, waiting for the NHS. I mean, I've just been lucky, I think, because some of these stories you hear are just so distressing.
Yes, I think so. Now, for animal lovers out there, this will probably upset them. It'll upset Kevin O'Sullivan. He doesn't like people killing animals. But down in Ashdown Forest, which is, of course, the home of Pooh Sticks Bridge and Winnie the Pooh, I know it well, you can now go and shoot deer, because apparently there's so many of them that they need to be culled. 300% more deer are going to be killed in Winnie the Pooh's woods, it says in the Times.
That's great. Well, I love venison, so the more the merrier. That's a bit of Bambi.
It's much better for you, actually, than beef as well.
Yeah, no. And this is the time of year to have it.
Funny enough, later on today, I'll be making a venison shepherd's pie.
Oh, really?
Which is very good. Highly recommended.
That's glorious. Well, do invite me over one time.
I will.
Yeah, this is the largest number of wild deer roaming for a millennium, which is quite remarkable. So they're allowed now to cull 1,000 deer in Sussex, as opposed to the usual 250.
It is a problem down there.
But, you know, not a bad, you know, going to the food bank and you get minced venison, you know, I mean,
this is the thing. Also, people will probably, you know, the animal rights lobby, who are always, you know, completely out of touch with reality, will say, oh, this is a terrible thing. But actually, according to the figures I've got here, wild deer cause up to 75,000 road traffic accidents each year, resulting in 10 to 15 driver deaths. Between 500,000 and 750,000 deer need to be culled each year year just to keep the population at a standstill. And I've certainly been in a situation where I've been driving down a road and you see a deer suddenly pop across the road, and they're always travelling threes for some reason, so it's always a wise idea to slow down. And then two others just ran right in front of the car, because if you hit one, it's actually, you know, obviously not very nice for them, but the car can get completely written off.
Oh yeah, well I used
dangerous stuff.
I used to live in Canada, and there was always a danger of a moose coming my way.
That's yeah. You don't
even more.
You don't want to hit one of those. That is absolutely outrageous. Very, very bad. Now, according to again another piece in the Sun, Dorothy's £25 million shoes from the Wizard of Oz have been sold. I mean, who pays that kind of money? I mean, this is when you know you've got too much money. £25 million for a pair of shoes worn by Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz.
You're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. You can now retire to Palm Beach with £25 million. Yeah, I mean, they were stolen, actually, these shoes, for 13 years before they came again. But, yeah, they were sold for 16 times the estimate. I mean, that's the thing now. Whenever you get an auction catalogue, you think, well, I might have a chance at this. Yeah. They all now go for sort of 10 times the price. So everyone's been priced out the market. And you just wonder, who's got 25 million
got that kind of money
just for a pair of shoes? You know, Melda Marcos is long gone, but...
Right. I mean, it's a sort of Bashar al-Assad territory, isn't it? I mean, I don't know if you saw yesterday, one of the pieces of video that was put out there on X was somebody discovered his garage with about 200 to 300 very, very expensive cars, supercars, Ferraris, Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, Cadillacs, you know, all just parked in this massive garage near his house.
Well, it's always one of the amazing things when you have one of these revolutions and all the public who were living in poverty invade the palace, and suddenly they see the reality of what they've been...
And they just start walking off with stuff.
And the tunnels, you know, the escape tunnels that have been constructed at huge expense underneath the palace, you know, going for miles with their own railway tracks.
Yeah, incredible.
To escape. Amazing.
Incredible stuff. Gadeep says this, morning, Mike. What if I had a stroke or heart attack and was asked to take myself there? If I drive, I could cause an accident. If I call an Uber or a taxi, do you think drivers would want someone in that condition in their car? They're not trained paramedics. No, I think that's right. And Sarah says, Mike, great show as always. On Starmer, because he's got such a useless foreign secretary, is that why he keeps trotting off abroad? Hasn't occurred to him that he could sack Lammy and get somebody in that can actually do the job? Well, you would hope he'd thought of that. We've got an actual list here of the countries that he's visited once: Azerbaijan, Belgium, Brazil, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, Samoa, United Arab Emirates. On 3 visits, France, Germany and the United States.
But of course, these are all trips, you know, which are fundamentally important as his climate change CEO.
Of course, absolutely right. Let's get a voice note from Dave.
Hello, Mike. Dave from Southend here. I want to know, are all the Syrians that are over here now going to go back home? Now that it's safe, they're not going to be oppressed. I wasn't around during the Second World War, but I know we didn't flee this country when we went to war. We fought for the country. Are they going to do the same? I don't think so. Take care.
Well, many of them did say yesterday that they wanted to go home. So it might start, and I think you said, Rafe, that many of them have already started to go home.
But it's a good point made there. You know, when you compare the Ukrainian refugees, women, children, the elderly and the infirm, the Syrian refugees, you know, a great number of them were all young men of fighting age.
Absolutely.
There's a big difference.
And they decided not to bother fighting. Upcoming trips, by the way, for Sir Keir Starmer: Cyprus, Santorini, Belgium, Canada, again, to attend the 51st G7 summit, the Netherlands to attend the 2025 NATO summit, and South Africa. Just because he fancies to look at the wine. Just a coincidence that he's going to Cyprus and Santorini in the middle of dark, cold winter. I think he's going to Cyprus on this trip that he's on currently. After he's been into Saudi Arabia, he's going to pop into Cyprus on the way home. It's nice work if you can get it, isn't it? Well, as I said, I think he might be looking for a second job. Things are going so badly. Absolutely right. It's really not going well at all. Come on, Mike. Starmer's working a 3-day week. Finishes at 6:30 on a Friday. Vanishes Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Comes back Wednesday and bloody vanishes again Friday at 6, says Linda. I don't know if he actually went to the Arsenal game this weekend, because he loves to go to Arsenal, but he tries to remain incognito. I also don't know if part of his trip to Abu Dhabi also involved him being at the Grand Prix. If anybody was at the Grand Prix and who's currently listening to this or watching us, you could let us know if you spotted him. He was probably in Lord Ali's box at the Grand Prix there, I suspect. And maybe he was meeting with the Emirates to discuss Arsenal. Yes. You just never know, do you? Absolutely incredible stuff. But, I mean, it's been another bizarre weekend for Keir Starmer. You know, I presume he'll be back in time to do Prime Minister's Questions on Wednesday. And then pretty soon they'll be breaking up, I guess, for Christmas, possibly early part of next week. And then we'll just kind of, I don't know, it feels like we're just gliding further and further into the mire without anybody. You know, when you sort of see those films with the guy sliding down the hill and eventually he's going to fall off a cliff? That's how I feel the economy's going.
Well, he's got a good chief of staff now in this Morgan McSweeney chap, you know, so I hope he's been
Well, that's
given
what we keep being told.
Yeah, so I hope he's been giving him a big sort of, you know, he'll spend the Christmas holidays with his nose in a book, actually, learning about how to be a leader.
Well, he doesn't... I mean, people say Morgan McSweeney's a great man, but is he really? Because, I mean...
Well, compared to Sue Gray, it's not much of a comparison.
But is he the architect of all of this madness and this nonsense? And is he the guy that came up with a great idea? I know, when you go and light the Christmas tree, that will cheer everybody up. And then we had so much fun with that last week. It was the most ridiculous thing anybody'd ever seen.
I suspect that wasn't... I did like his being tough on crime, because you've got to remember, Tony Blair knew Labour, despite being a party of the left.
Yeah.
You know, they were very good on crime. And, you know, and what was his name? David Blunkett was a very good Home Secretary. Yeah. So I was hoping that there might be some of that magic sprinkled.
Well, they look like leviathans of politics compared to this lot. I mean, there's literally nobody in this cabinet that's really got any kind of experience of doing anything at all outside of working for a council or some kind of public sector quango.
Well, the Tories were so inept and incompetent in office, and I kept thinking, my God, can it get any worse? And then I would look across to the opposition benches and said,
well,
yes,
you know,
it can get a lot worse.
If you look at the opposition front bench and you see who's there, imagine them running the country. Angela Rayner, David Lammy and Keir Starmer, and they're only the ones that we know. Most of them are completely anonymous. Here's one from Mark in Southampton. He says, "Morning, Mike. I've never seen anyone as out of her depth as Angela Rayner." I think that's right.